It's about you, and them, and them. Developer, the builders, the implementers, groundbreakers. The power of AI is yours. So select models confidently, test them, compare them, and find your best fit. Activate diverse data from any source, in any form, and turn it into reliable intelligence. Customize models with retrieval and fine-tuning to deliver performance that stands out. Safeguard every layer with trustworthy AI from the start and protect against new risks. Design personalized experiences without boundaries, always learning and adapting. Innovation prompts more innovation. It doesn't stop. It only gets better. You are coding the future, and Azure is here for all of it. Keep iterating, keep scaling. Be unstoppable.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Great to be here for this partner breakout session. Thanks for making it. We got the room almost full here. My name's Cyril Belikoff, and I'll be joined by David Seda. We'll do a Act 1, Act 2 type of thing here. Originally, I'm from South Africa. David from Kenya, so you got this Africa connection with you a little bit. We both live in Seattle, so it's okay. When we came over on Monday, we decided to bring the weather with us for all of you, so I apologize for that, but we got it all cleaned up. So what we'll do is I'll set up a few things, just a quick few slides just to set things up, then David will come on and give us a grounded view from a product perspective, and then I'll come back for Act 2 just to close things out and give you a sense of how we're thinking about AI adoption. Okay, so just to get going, first of all, thank you. As our partners in the room, many of you are our partners. We probably have some customers here too, considering it's Ignite. But listen, thank you. We've seen an amazing onboarding of customers into our Azure AI experiences and services, and it cannot be done with all our partners. Our partners not only building those things for customers, but giving us feedback so we can improve the experiences for yourselves and for those customers. The one thing that sort of makes us sit up and notice is what's the opportunity for partners? And really, we did this research with IDC recently and found that for every $1 that Microsoft makes, our services partners make more than $8. And then our software partners or software development companies make almost $11. And so it's a great opportunity in this new era of AI, whether it's core migration and modernization or new workloads like AI, for opportunity in the market with customers that are here at Ignite with you. So in addition to that, we also spoke to a bunch of partners about how their AI practice is going. And for those early partners that got into AI, where 25% of their business is at least AI, or at least 25% of their business is AI, you can see great numbers on the slides, a 46% higher revenue growth and 41% higher gross margin. So the opportunity to take what they've been doing in the past, whether it's migration, modernization, analytics, or app services, and then integrate AI into it, led them to improved performance. So that's a brief setup, and so I wanted to introduce David and have him come up and make it real with AI. So David, over to you. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Good morning. I was just reflecting on yesterday. I don't know if anybody else caught this reference. One of the speakers, probably with a passion for cricket, referenced this as the middle innings of generative AI. Did you catch that? I have a colleague at work who, maybe with a passion for series television, refers to this as season 2 of generative AI. Have you heard that? Well, just reflect back on season 1, how we ended season 1. It was a cliffhanger, if you remember. The cliffhanger was generative AI was going to take over the world. It could do all the jobs that we currently do, and we were going to be in a workless society. Do you remember any of that? Spoiler alert, That hasn't happened, in parentheses, yet. What has happened is we've seen some groundbreaking generative AI applications, but far too many people are actually having a difficult time to make it work for them. By the way, I consider these great statistics. This is good news. Yeah, but David, those don't look like great numbers. Au contraire, mes amis. Do you remember the, let's call him a famous inventor named Thomas Edison? Founded a company called General Electric back in 1892. Remember? You know, the one who supposedly invented the fluorescent light bulb, the phonograph, the motion picture camera, electric power distribution, the alkaline battery, the stock ticker, that Thomas Edison? Remember? He was famously quoted as saying, "I have not failed, I have found 10,000 ways that won't work." And so thank you to all the pioneers who are in these statistics. You have shown us what doesn't work, and our job now is to figure out what will work. And so when you evaluate the work that we're doing in this community, I think we should understand how well it reflects on what people are struggling with. What we've heard from builders is that it's far too difficult to make this stuff work. Everything from selecting a model to integrating it with our current systems. They want easier ways to experiment and test their applications. And from IT professionals, what we've heard is we need to be able to govern the data that's going into AI. We need to be able to manage and monitor and assess the risks and the costs better. We have no idea what this thing is going to cost us once we put it into production. So the question is, how do we evaluate things like Azure AI Foundry and all the other technologies you're going to hear about against some of these needs that have been expressed? When you think about what we're trying to do, let's just take selecting models. What did we first do when people want to select models? All of us, we publish these benchmarks. Everybody who is not a data scientist, I'd like you to explain to me what MMLU means and what it's going to mean for my application. You know what I'm talking about, MMLU benchmark? The massive multitasking language understanding benchmark that is on every new model? Or what about GPQA? Do you know that benchmark? The graduate level Google proof question and answer? These are the benchmarks that we're publishing. When you go to Catalog today and say, evaluate these models, we publish these benchmarks. Great for data scientists, not so great for the rest of us who don't quite understand what the benchmarks means. So what people really want to know is, what's going to be the effect of that on my application? And so if you look at what I think we're trying to do is to say, just give me a straight comparison. Here, if you saw this, this is Marco's application. He's trying to build a multimodal application. So on the top left, he's got GPT-4o mini, I think, and on the right, he's got model from Meta, both multimodal models, and Marco has just fed them both the same picture and said, give me your results. And you can see that the models have different results. That's what people want to know. How is it going to affect my application? Not what's the MMLU benchmark for these two applications, right? So our job is to make it easier for people to understand what's going to happen to their application. That's what we're trying to do. Same thing with fine-tuning. I recently met with a partner from the East Coast. They're about a $2 billion company, and all they do is specialize in fine-tuning models for the financial services industry. That's literally all they do. And so they want to know, how do I get better at fine-tuning? How do I get over the fine-tuning cost? Because once you fine-tune a model, you have to maintain that model. Every time a new version comes out, you have to work it. And so we're also looking at what comes beyond fine-tuning, right? So if you've heard of things like guidance or steering, there are other ways to tune models without messing with the internals of the model. And so you don't have to worry about long-term maintenance because you're not touching the inners of the model. So as we go forward, I think you need to look at some of these things as points in time. We'll get better at fine-tuning. We have a host of models we fine-tune today, but we also have to go beyond fine-tuning because there is an expense to maintaining these kinds of applications once they get into production. When you think about agents, one way to think about agents is to think about the problem they're trying to solve. for those in the room who have been building applications for decades, we're evolving from applications that were static systems to applications that are dynamic and changing. They're dynamic and learning systems. So the big question is, how do I connect knowledge and memory and actions and models in a unified way as things continue to evolve? All of those things will be changing. So how do I make a framework in which to build these things? So when you look at this, we started on the left with the Azure OpenAI service, which had something called the Assistance API. And I think we had the Assistance API since maybe early this spring of this year. And we found very low adoption. And when you look at what Assistance API offers, it's clear why there's low adoption. Number one, it only works with one model. And not everybody's going to use one model. And so the first task was make sure it works with more models. So you can see we're adding models to what you could do with the Assistance API. The second thing was, with the Assistance API, you can see the two things it had was the code interpreter and the file search, so you could bring your data in, but you and I know that most large enterprises are not going to move their data into this to take advantage of it. They've been building and investing in data for years, and that data estate is not going anywhere. And so you have to allow people, that's what the bottom part shows, is you have to allow people to bring their own search indexes, their own data. For security, they want to bring their own VNets. So all the enterprise constructs have to be brought into this framework. You can't expect people to leave those investments behind. And then, of course, on the far right, there's three things an agent really needs. It needs knowledge, it needs action, and needs a description, if you will, of what its role is. And so in the knowledge space, you can see that we've got a number of knowledge sources that you can attach to your agent. That includes your enterprise knowledge, whether it's in Fabric or M365, your SharePoints, or if you want to go out and find data on the internet, we've added the Bing search so you can go out and get data. You can get licensed data. So for example, think about if you want to create a travel agent, right? You're going to want to maybe leverage TripAdvisor, who has licensed data about travel, so you don't want to recreate all that, so you just license it from, so we've added things like that into this so you can bring in licensed data. And then you need actions. Enterprises have been building a lot of logic for their business applications for a long time, and you want to inherit that into your agent. And so everything you've built, the 1,400 connectors and logic apps, all of those can be brought into your agent construct. So you need to be able to bring in knowledge, your actions, and then a description, if you will. Think of that as a system message. If you're thinking about generative AI, think about a system message that describes the agent and what its behavior is and what its role is. Once you give an agent those three things, now you have the foundation for building your agent constructs. And I think if we look forward on agents, everybody talks about automating business process, and that for sure will happen. There are some business processes. I think a good example is McKinsey has a process they recently shared with us. Some processes have been very hard to automate. There are some that are very deterministic, fairly easy to automate. Others, the McKinsey project was every time a new client comes into McKinsey and applies for a project team to help them solve a particular problem, McKinsey has a desk where they take in the client requests. It takes about 20 days for them to figure out schedules. They want to find, do they have the right people to put on that project team? Do they have people who have prior experience with that client? So as they're looking at their staff and this client request, it takes them about 20 days to assemble a project team and be able to get to the client to say, we've got the core team who can help you with the project, and 20 days later you have an answer. They've automated that process. It now takes 2 days. So that's a process that's not that easy to automate, but with agents, they've been able to take that down to 2 days. So I think you're going to have, naturally, that kind of automation. But here's another example that we're beginning to see people use agents for. At the end of this conference, it might be typical for us to give you a website or to send you maybe some of the presentations that came from this conference, right? Or when you finish a meeting or an offsite, you might give people the materials from the meeting or offsite. What we're beginning to see people do is, instead of that, is I send you an agent. And what I've done with the agent is I've actually trained it on all the content at the conference, and now you can use that agent to ask it any questions. So you can say, I didn't get to attend all the sessions, but where were all the examples of agent and estimating agent costs? And it'll find all of that information in any of the sessions, and so that kind of an agent. So my sense is you will see different working patterns as people learn to use agents. And just as today, almost every office worker, it's basic productivity to be able to open a spreadsheet, put a few things into a spreadsheet, or to read a spreadsheet. We'll get to a point probably where everybody knows how to open an agent, use an agent, add to an agent, et cetera. It'll just be a general productivity kind of thing. So that's where I think agents is going. They're trying to solve this problem of dynamic learning systems and how you connect knowledge, memory, actions, and models. So again, what we heard from builders is you got to make this stuff super easy. So when you want to add knowledge, it's kind of like today if you go into the Azure AI Studio, you want to add, in Azure AI Search, you want to add your Fabric or you want to add a data lake, you simply click, or you want to upload a file. It should be easy as just clicking the sources of data. Or if you want to add actions to your agent, as we have here, you can see you can add your custom functions, any business logic that you previously created in logic apps, et cetera. You should be able to just click and add it to your agent construct. The last area, and this is probably the area where we'll see the greatest amount of effort and work, in my estimation, over the next few months, is going to be in the area of governance and managing and monitoring these systems once they're in production. Because this is the thing that everybody is terrified about. It's difficult today to even estimate the cost of what this Gen AI application is going to cost me. And if you're in IT administration, you're trying to get budget from your CFO, they want to know what's the cost of all this stuff you're putting out here and what's the business impact. And so things like AI reports, which we announced here at this conference, is the idea of every builder being able to tag everything they're doing. So imagine I'm a builder, I'm building a Gen AI application. Any test that I run on my application, maybe evaluating it for security or its propensity produced harmful content or its propensity to hallucinate, any evaluation I do of my model, I should be able to save that evaluation and tag it so some governance tool, right, whether it's a Microsoft tool or a third-party tool, should be able to ingest that. And so people who are trying to oversee all of these applications should know what's going on in my development estate, what are people testing, what are the results of those tests, right? So that kind of governance. So we're working with third parties who will be able to ingest that data. We're working with our own teams like Purview, who are governance applications, to be able to ingest everything that's coming out of the builder environment and be able to oversee that and have a kind of a surface level view of everything that's going on. My team has recently been working with the EU AI Act. As you may know, the EU AI Act took effect in August. It's going to affect not only companies in Europe, but any company who operates in Europe, and that is many companies outside of Europe operate in Europe. And the compliance obligations for the EU AI Act take effect on February 2nd of next year. And so we have customers now scrambling and saying, how am I going to comply with that? And so if you look at some of our applications like the Compliance Manager, which is a part of Purview, we're going to be able to give clients a way to do an assessment or generate an assessment report of their IT estate and how compliant it is with the EU AI Act, and identify areas where they need improvement so they can go and begin working on those. I came to Microsoft from a healthcare company, and every time we were regulated, and so every time when the FDA decided they were going to audit us, it took us about 3 months to get ready for the audit, right? And then we had to practice the audit and identify areas that were going to be of concern and try to fix those and be ready for the audit. So auditing is something that you'll see even with the agent technology that we're putting in. We have to be able to log and audit what the agents do. And when you think about autonomous agent, an agent reasoning based on an underlying language model and then taking a decision, what decision was taken, there needs to be an audit log of all of that. And so that's what you'll see. You have to audit and log this stuff so that whether you're in the EU or not, you just have your own compliance, internal standards. You want to be able to understand how people are complying with your internal compliance as well as external regulatory compliance. So I think there's a lot of work to do in this specific place about management and governance, and I think that's what you'll see over the next coming months. The one thing I want to point out about the models, you've probably seen this in one of the other sessions. Just look at the bottom right. One of the trends we've seen is in models, people are beginning to develop industry-specific models. Recently, I spoke at a congress in Copenhagen. It was a telecom conference, and big debate. One of the Korean operators was developing a customized model. They were actually retraining a large language model for the telecom industry, and many of their peers were questioning and saying, if you build a model, I'm not going to use it. I'm another operator. I'm not going to use your model. I'm going to build my own. And so there's a lot of debate about how our industry model is going to shape up. And so you're beginning to see now industry-specific models. We announced some of them here. I think you'll see that to be an evolving category. What is true is a generalized language model for many vertical industries is not sufficient. That's why people are fine-tuning and customizing models, and there needs to be some level of grounding not only with your internal knowledge base, but perhaps with industry data. And so you'll see a lot of evolution in the industry model space. And this is the last category of management that I mentioned. We announced Azure AI reports as one announcement here at the conference, but a lot of these centralized governance tools will take shape over the next coming months. And with that, a video, and then Cyril will come back.
Integrated growth and transformation partners.
If our data makes a campaign even 1% more effective, it can save our clients millions of dollars.
Through Azure AI Foundry on the Microsoft Azure platform, we built a custom copilot.
The goal was to help users interpret results as they optimize media plans. It cuts time to insight by 90%.
With Microsoft, we're turning our media expertise into a competitive advantage.
And welcome back, Cyril.
Thank you, David. Thank you. That was great. It's amazing to see all the feedback from all of you and from customers and how that's been absorbed into the product so we can help customers adopt everything they need to do with all these models. As you saw, there's 1,800 plus models in the Azure AI Foundry, but all the things around it and connecting the developer with the IT practitioner or the decision maker is a really important sort of adoption journey. And so what I thought I'd share with you is we've been looking at our own implementation of AI, those thousands and thousands of other customers that we've done, and obviously with large customers like OpenAI themselves, and pull together a set of best practices. And so we've been sharing that out in terms of what does it take to do and adopt AI in the best way possible. And so we have 3 categories. I'll take you through the categories. First, around just getting ready, readiness and foundation, doing the right planning. Then the actual implementation, design and governance pieces, architecture, and then finally, how to manage and optimize. And so you'll see elements here that sort of mirror what you saw in the product, but this is really guidance that fits around it as a sister, if you will, to the core product experiences that you saw from David. In the first area, particularly around readiness and foundation, 5 categories that we've seen as great best practices. The first, start with the simple things. Like if you have AI and you want to apply AI to data, the best thing is to have your data in the cloud and some customers are still on premises or have elements of on premises. And so figuring out how you get your data migrated, your infrastructure migrated, and obviously co-located, your data co-located to your AI platform is probably the best from a performance perspective. So that's the first area of best practice. The second is to think about what the industry knows as FinOps, and so the financial best practices, and how you stitch that together and leveraging the insights from the FinOps practices they've done with cloud and applying that to the new AI platform. Figuring out your right pricing models, whether it's pay-as-you-go, savings plan, or any particular other pricing models. And then getting a general platform landing zone. We're not in the AI land yet. We're calling basically your Azure landing zone, getting that implemented and correct, and then finding the right skills. So readiness and foundation. We found that customers that do these steps first before they start have a much better success rate when they implement. On design and govern, the first around what you've heard, trustworthy AI, the basic elements of security, privacy, and safety. Implementing, you saw David talk about a few of them in the Azure AI Foundry. And there are product elements of that, but you have to build the policies. What policies do you want to have around security, privacy, safety, and then implement them? At the same time, you have to get to your architectural guidance. What specific architecture do you want to implement for AI? and what does that mean for your organization, and how will you apply or allow many different applications to run inside your AI platform that might be internal, a bunch external, and how they're going to work together. And then Gen AI Ops, how do you operationalize the development of AI with operations? And then finally, with Manage and Optimize, now we're on an ongoing state. We want to monitor, so use observability to watch what is going on inside your platform with the models. And then from a security perspective too, are you seeing any attacks into the model? Are you getting the right results coming out of the models? Management, ongoing tools to manage performance, manage the cost, return on investment, and to make sure you understand what's going on. And then, of course, reliability, making sure you have the elements of reliability. And just like we think today of our cloud platform need to be reliable, AI is soon going to be business mission critical. And so when that happens, you need to be reliable too, just like any other experience that you have for yourselves internally or for customers. So a key element of that sort of wheel that I mentioned to you are the cloud adoption framework and the Azure well-architected framework. Both have been around for quite some time, and where the cloud adoption framework is really examples of deep adoption in organizations, way more than the wheel that I explained to you. And then the well-architected framework that's really about architecture and architecture guidance. So at Ignite, we announced two new things, both for cloud adoption framework and well-architected framework. And that is specific tailored guidance and approach, including architectures to help customers accelerate on Azure AI. So for cloud adoption framework, you can see the URL there, same for well-architected framework, really specific elements for AI that we've taken from thousands and thousands of customers that have implemented over the last 18 months to 2 years. To give you a little bit of sense inside each of these, so here's the cloud adoption framework. So these are technical, real-world tested best practices, recommendations on specific to Azure AI. Of course, we have cloud adoption framework for all of Azure, all the workloads that you know and love, but this one's specific to Azure AI. And then an implementation plan, a detailed checklist implementation plan, so a comprehensive roadmap on how you should go about implementing it. And then, obviously, readiness and driving readiness to get you the right scale. This is an example of sort of a decision tree in the cloud adoption framework for AI. And simple yes/no answers that allow as partners or customers to make a decision on what to pick for when. And so we included like really smart decision trees to help you answer the questions and how you use the technologies to implement as you move into your architecture. Talking about architecture, this is the well-architecture framework for AI and some little bit more specifics. So as it says here, first is the design support, so specific technical workload recommendations for AI, technical guidance, so reference architectures based on all these best practices, and then the ability for you to do a readiness assessment and evaluate your AI experiences before you go into production deployment. So we've seen those people who build out those landing zones, use cloud adoption framework and well-architected, are 4 times faster to market. Now, it's sort of like, well, that's a bit of planning before I execute. My execs want me to execute. It's like, yes, you should sharpen your saw before you chop down the tree. Now, we don't want to chop down any trees. We're in a sustainable world. But you get the analogy, right? Getting your planning right, getting the right architectures and best practices leads to better and faster adoption. As we close things out here, I wanted to mention just a few things. First of all, the Azure Innovate and Azure Migrate and Modernize, 2 offerings available to partners to use with customers and also for customers to get from their account teams. So Azure Innovate is really focused on the AI workloads, experiences, analytics, new app experiences, really all the innovation side of things. And then Azure Migrate and Modernize, is intended for helping customers migrate and modernize from their on-premise estate. There's funding available for partners to use with customers, so please take advantage of Azure Innovate and Azure Migrate and Modernize. More recently, we launched Azure Essentials. And Azure Essentials, as it implies, is the essentials for Azure Innovate and Azure Migrate and Modernize, providing the tools, best practices, and guidance in one single place, in one resource kit, across all the different workloads. what we covered today was essentially AI. And so in that resource kit, under the AI section, you'll see all the, the wheel that I covered and all the different resources that I shared out in each of those phases for you to use with customers or customers to use directly. And then, of course, we have other elements that allow you to do things like resiliency and security in addition to the core Azure workloads. So as we close things out here, really the question is, what will you do with AI? And we are so good, David and myself, we're giving you 10 or 15 minutes back in your day. So our apology for bringing in the rain. We're giving you a little bit of time back. That closes us out. Hopefully this was helpful. Please give us feedback on the eval forms, and thank you for your time today.